Hey y'all, I'm Jenny. Welcome to the Homestead. Today is all about adding some garden trellises to certain things that I've got in the ground already. I found some odds and ends of just cattle panel cuts. They're all different sizes, just stuff that we had left over from some fencing. So I'm going to show y'all a couple of different things that we are going to do for trellising this year. All right, so this is how I normally trellis my cucumbers, and it seems to work pretty well as long as you keep the cucumbers pruned down, because sometimes they do get a little too thick, and you want to make sure that their airflow is really good. So these are old above ground pool legs that we had. It was from a pool that we had about, I don't know, 10 years ago when we lived out in Texas, and I have a bunch of them. I saved them, and you know, it was a great repurpose. So these cucumbers are almost ready to start climbing. So this section is done here. Sometimes I'll put deer netting over it. Sometimes I'll hang strings from it to help them climb. It just kind of depends on how they're looking as they're growing. So this one right here, it was over here on these cucumbers, but I added a shade cloth to the top of it just to give them a little break from the heat. And we had a windstorm last night and it knocked this trellis down. So that was the first time I've ran the shade cloth between the two. So I need to come up with a different plan for the shade cloth because that did not work. So I need to replace a trellis on this cucumber row, and that's where I'm going to add this cattle panel using these T-posts. All right, this trellis is up. It's not very tall, so I may end up adding to it, but I am just going with what I've got at this point. All right, I also went ahead and added a panel to this row of carrots because I will interplant tomatoes in this bed. Apparently tomatoes and carrots are supposed to be great companion plants. So I should be able to fit, I don't know, maybe 4 tomatoes in this row right here. So this will be a nice addition. So instead of adding a couple more rows or a couple more beds to my garden, which I'm not really out of space, but I'm starting to run out of space. But I'm going to try to utilize the things that I have and the space that I have the best way that I can. So I have these posts right here that were actually installed last fall when we had broccoli and cabbage and bok choy in this space. And we had shade cloth that went all the way across. So this spring, I'm going to be utilizing these poles. I've got some cut pieces of fence that you can see there. That is just stapled to that post, and it's got a couple zip ties on it. And we've never grown black-eyed peas before. So instead of dedicating a bunch of ground space to something that I haven't grown before, we are going to do just a few black-eyed pea plants on this vertical trellis. So growing upwards is definitely a huge space saver. You can make a lot more out of your space by adding trellis. So I think by the time it's all said and done, my whole garden may be trellised, but I think that'll be awesome. Should be able to fit, I would say maybe 8 or 10 black-eyed pea plants on this vertical trellis. Super easy. It was just scrap that I had laying around. And I just save metal things like this, and Tori will save metal things like this. And, you know, so this is all just stuff that we have laying around. Old pots, old pieces of metal to use for trellising. So this is where we are going to grow our cucamelons for the first time, which is like a miniature cherry-sized tomato cucumber of sorts. So the cucamelon, they're supposed to grow really well here, so I am excited about that. And so I'm going to add 3 of these pots and trellises to go ahead and get that going. All right, so I've got all 3 installed now. I just have to go fill the wheelbarrow up with some good old chicken coop dirt. Well, I had one more section of cattle panel left over, so I went ahead and added it to the back side of the compost tea maker. On this row right here, I'm about to seed that with black bean bush. So I think maybe I'll throw a few cucamelon seeds in here too and let the cucamelons grow back up the back of the compost tea maker. So in other words, get creative with the materials that you have and the space that you have, and really anywhere that you can add a trellis, go ahead and add a trellis and grow something up that trellis. You really utilize all the space that you have as best as you can. You don't need a huge garden. You can do a lot in a small space. All right, all the trellises are installed for now anyway. I went ahead and put in 2 rows of black beans, and I also got my black-eyed peas in the ground right where the trellis is up the post, the tall vertical one. So just in time for a nice spring shower.